Genki rushes home, exhausted and wishing he had spider powers. Arriving back at his room, he is relieved to find Miles there, sitting in the dark. His friend says nothing and only embraces Genki. Flustered at this, he tells his friend that everyone was worried about Miles and begins to call them as many are still out looking for Spider-Man. Miles sits down and explains what happened. How everyone got a vision of him killing Captain America. But it was more than that. He felt himself kill Steve Rogers. He could sense the chainmail snap, the bones in his neck breaking. It's been rough. So Miles went to DC. He wasn't really thinking, he just sort of hopped on top of a train and went. He had to prove it, that this wasn't going to happen, that it wasn't him. The police arrived and things started escalating. Miles knew they were just doing their jobs and that cops used to do this stuff to the original Spider-Man all the time. But then, just as things were getting bad, they were called off. At which point Miles was approached by Steve Rogers. Things were pretty awkward between the two of them, but before Miles could continue this story, Goldballs arrives, followed by Miss Marvel, both of whom are happy to see their friend is okay. Miles explains to everyone what happened and that things are fine until Carol showed up. When she got close to Miles, a barrier activated, Stark appeared, and the two heroes started to fight over him. And there was nothing Spider-Man could do about it. Miles has a dark confession for his friends. Genki knows some of this, but not everything. Miles' uncle Aaron was a bad guy. He used to look up to him when he was young, but as Miles got older, he came to understand that Aaron was simply a terrible human being. Then Miles learned a more devastating truth, that his father used to be almost just as bad. And Miles, he wonders what that makes him. Sometimes he has these thoughts, these flashes of anger. In battle, he sometimes wants to rip people's heads off, more times than he cares to admit. He's worried it's in his blood, his DNA, that one day he's just going to go in that same direction that his father and uncle did. So Miles went to Washington to prove he wasn't capable of killing anyone, to prove to himself that he wasn't his uncle or his dad. He went there, and there was nothing he could do. The others reassure him it's okay. We all have our doubts and our darkness. And Genki knows, without a doubt, that Miles will never be his father, because he's already 1,000,000 times better than him. On the other side of the door, Jefferson walks away in silence. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my recap and review of Spider-Man number 10. Well, wow, that was great. I know how pretty much every month I seem to be giving this title the same praise, but that's because every issue this series goes above and beyond to deserve such positive words. It's actually amazing and a little funny just how good these are and just how out of step these Spider-Man comics feel in comparison to the rest of the Civil War II because of it. Even so many of the other current Marvel comics in general just feel dwarfed in comparison to this thing. The reasons for this are obvious and varied. Bendis' excellent character work, as always, adds a lot to the mix. The art is great, and at the end of the day, Miles is just a great character with depth and flaws that foster development and an ongoing story quite nicely. It helps that Bendis has surrounded Spider-Man with a great supporting cast of compelling, interesting people in their own right. It all comes together to make for a great series that pays off every single time. Granted, this comic doesn't stand well on its own. You need the context of Civil War II to really appreciate what's going on here. But if you're even vaguely familiar with those events, these comics offer a lot. Oh, and then there's that other thing. For whatever reason, most likely the Marvel kind of goofed up the publication order of Civil War II core stories, or maybe just that they've been holding things off for a while. It seems we have a spoiler in this comic. Only, not really, because we pretty much already knew this was going to happen. Basically, it's already been given away what was going to go down with Tony Stark. Seeing it like this kind of does away with a lot of people's theories that Tony was faking it, but he's fine in the long term. We know eventually they're going to bring him back, so it doesn't really matter. It was so telegraphed by Marvel, it almost makes me think this was intentional. a little preview of what we can expect in Civil War II's final issue, since they had already given that game away. I'll be honest, given that we already had ample evidence this was going to happen, I'm indifferent to it all. It doesn't really matter. And taking aside Civil War II's baggage and nonsense, this is just a great comic with a lot of great moments and little details. I love stuff like this scene where Goldballs comes in having just had a shower or something, and then Miss Marvel bursts into the room and she's so worried about Miles she doesn't even notice Fabio until a page later, and then she gets all embarrassed. It's cute stuff which show a lot of thought going into this comic, and this little moment was enough to get me to literally laugh out loud the first time I saw it. Finally, we get an ending that I think really landed it. It's just a strong emotional moment that didn't really feel forced in the slightest. Miles having these thoughts and concerns about being like his father is very natural, and that coming into conflict with his dad, again, feels like a very real and natural conflict that would arise from this. I liked and would recommend Spider-Man number 10. I hope you check this out for yourself, and if you enjoyed this review, check out our Patreon page. Donors get stuff and can do things, and we all like stuff and things, unless you're one of those stuffy thingmongerers. Unacceptable folk they are. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.